Hey guys, my name is Jeff, and this is a paint-to-sample acid green Porsche 918 Spyder Hypercar, which is one of the fastest, most brutal cars Porsche's ever produced, and it's one of the holy trinity of that new generation of hybrid hypercar, which debuted along with the LaFerrari and the McLaren P1. This particular car is absolutely drop-dead gorgeous, and one of my favorite things about the 918 right off the bat is the fact that this car was actually available with a tax credit. It had a then new MSRP just shy of $1 million, but once you bought it, you could actually get a $3,700 tax credit because of the hybrid nature of this car. Actually made it more efficient with an EV-only range of about 12 miles. Absolutely incredible hypercar. If you wanted to purchase this specific car, good news is this car is actually heading to auction under lot number 1405 at the 2024 Barrett-Jackson Scottsdale auction as offered from Silver Arrow Cars. So today we're going to be taking a look at this beautiful hypercar and going through some of the details in the exterior, interior, powertrain, etc. And of course, we'll take it for a drive. So moving on to the exterior of our Porsche 918 Spyder. Now, as I mentioned earlier, this particular car is paint-to-sample acid green. Now, the cool part about the 918 is when it debuted, it essentially had a sort of acid green theme to it. See, if we take a look at the brake calipers and even the E-hybrid badges on the side here, you can see that those actually have acid green in them. And that would have been standard on a lot of the Porsche 918s. I believe you could option to not have it, but in this particular case, this car takes that a whole step further by getting the entire car paint to sample. Even the interior, you can see as acid green pinstriping for all the piping on the seats, and the whole thing is just acid green. So this is the full experience, which of course can now be purchased as this car's heading to auction. Now, the whole car is just drop dead gorgeous, and it retains some other aspects like its predecessor, which was the Carrera GT. Like you can see here, we have center lock wheels, which are red here on the driver's side. And as we move around to the passenger side, we have blue center lock wheels, which is obviously a thing to remember. If it's a race car, you remember that, oh hey, blue goes on the passenger side of the car, red goes on the driver's side, so that way you don't put the wheel on the wrong side and everything stays balanced for racing. And you could even get, there are actually optional seat belts. You can see we have the standard shoulder harness, but you could actually get a harness, which was included with the car, but not installed by the dealership because it was, a race car and you couldn't do that from the dealership, but it was included in case you wanted to track your Porsche 918 Spyder. And this particular car, you can even see, has some of the Weissach components, which we'll talk about later as well. So getting right into it, let's take a look at the front. Obviously, we have a front Porsche badge. We have some beautiful headlights, which I believe this was the first appearance of this style of headlight, which would obviously go on to become things like the X-Sight headlight and even make its way to the Cayenne with the new generation and things like that. So pretty cool in terms of the engineering design for this car that looked like nothing else at the time, to then introduce things that we would see on later Porsche models. Coming around to the side here, we of course have Michelin Pilot Sport Cup 2R tires here. Can't go wrong with Michelin's. Carbon ceramic brakes, absolutely massive brake rotors at that. Random bits of carbon inside some of the vents, and all sorts of cool hypercar sporty things here. Now, this car currently has the top off of it, and so we can see this little carbon fiber wing right here. So this guy is removable. It just clicks into the top of the windshield. This is actually a sort of wind deflector that goes on when you have the top off. Kind of funny, thought I would point it out. One of the other important things to mention as we look at the front of our car here is the fact that this actually has the optional suspension axle lift, so it'll go ahead and lift up the nose of the car because this car is very, very low. You can see there's about, I don't know, 3 or 4 inches of ground clearance, probably a bit more than that from the ground, but that'll lift up the front nose of the car so you don't have to scrape the beautiful carbon and front panels of your Porsche 918 Spyder. We can see it's got a little electronic door popper to open the door pretty easily. Look at that. And then in here we have some of the radiators, which also serve as rock collectors, and even the front and even this top vent will pick up some rocks in this car. But as we move around, we can see we have the fuel cap, but more importantly on the fuel cap, we have our Inconel exhaust for the motor in the back here, but you actually have your hybrid section over here. So this is where you have your plug-in hybrid section of the car that also gets you your tax credit, which is kind of funny. As we move around, our Inconel exhaust with our motor, and then we even have here 918 Spyder number 891, one of the many places where they actually show you the number, as they produced a total of 918 Spyders. So ironically, it's a Porsche 918 Spyder, and they built 918 of them. So while we're back here, we also have the spoiler, which obviously this spoiler can actually be manually raised and lowered. It definitely looks best with the spoiler up, so most of the time you'll see it up. And then you can see down here, most cars won't have this, but you can see all of the carbon fiber. Now this is actually part of the Visoc package, including this big diffuser back here that you can see lines everything, and it even contains the backup camera, including the backup lights, and then this absolutely beautiful carbon fiber spoiler as well, which just brings everything to a nice touch. So moving on to the powertrain of our Porsche 918 Spyder. In order to take a look at it, the first thing we're going to want to do is open up our door, and then we have a control panel here with gas and then the frunk, but we want the trunk or the hood. Go ahead and open that, and then the only thing that opens up is this panel right here, which says Porsche number 891 of 918 Spyders, and it just gives us access to our oil. So you can't actually open up the engine to get access to it. That's something that's best left to the Porsche techs if you are interested in looking at your Porsche 918 Spyder. So moving on to the actual engine powertrain specs. So sitting right here with our beautiful Inconel exhausts is a naturally aspirated 4.6 liter V8, which makes around 600 horsepower in its own right. But as I mentioned earlier, this car is actually a hybrid, which means we have an electric motor in the rear and we have an electric motor in the front, which now gives it a combined output of 887 horsepower and 944 pound-feet of torque. So this is quite the hypercar. Now this car weighs around 3,700 pounds, which yes, is on the heavier side, but it has so much power and so much tech into it. Plus it has all-wheel drive, so you know it's going to be fast. What that does is it gives the 918 Spyder a 0 to 60 time of 2.6 seconds on paper, but in reality, actual testing was as fast as 2.4 and 2.2 seconds from independent testers. So this is quite the performance vehicle. On top of that, this thing can run a quarter mile in less than 10 seconds in stock form, which is unbelievable. And it's at a sub 7-minute Nürburgring time and has a top speed of 211 miles per hour. This is quite the car, quite the looker, with all the performance to match. All right, so doing the dance to get into the Porsche 918 Spyder. Go ahead and close that door, and now we're nice and snug in our 918. The Porsche key obviously goes in the left side, and you go ahead and turn that to get access to everything, but the car obviously stays off because it is still a hybrid, so it leaves the motor off while everything's in the car. But we have a beautiful setup here. Everything feels very targeted for the driver. Everything's well within reach. You can see it could even reach into the passenger side of the compartment. So what do we have here? Well, in Porsche fashion, we have a tack right off the bat that gives us basically digital screens. You have 3 gauge pods, but each of them has digital displays. So some of the controls on the steering wheel here, you actually have controls to control the left display, which will also tell you that this is in fact Porsche 918 number 891. And the right display has a lot of our temps, including our gas gauge and things like that. You have a nice center stripe wheel. It's just a good looking wheel, but the wheel itself also has some cool features like these buttons down here that can adjust some of the different hot lap buttons and things like that, including a joker button, which can actually be adjusted for whatever you want. And then like other Porsches, you have your drive mode select here in the bottom right of the steering wheel. On top of that, we actually have a screen over here on the right that sits kind of recessed, and that of course has the fact that we have a display along with our navigation bits, and in the center here is where you'll find a lot of your car displays and some of the things that can be adjusted. You have your lift control here at the top with the hazards and some of the other traction control disable stuff. You have your drive mode select, which is like a toggle switch to put the car in drive or reverse, and you of course even have your carbon fiber paddle shifters on this car. And then as we look below, we have a variety of stuff here. This is where we work on our radio with this touchscreen, but it's also how you get access to some of the car info. So you can have this sort of haptic feedback system here that's all touch-based, and you can open up stuff for the car. So we have the interior access. We can also get exterior access, vision, charge, all sorts of really cool access to things, including this is how you would raise and lower your rear spoiler of your Porsche 918. Below that, you have your feedback, and then at the very bottom, you have your AC menu. Now overall, it's kind of a fun car with the headlights. You feel very enclosed. It feels just like a very fast car with the high visibility of the pontoons at the front fenders. You actually have a cup holder, not something you would expect to find in a 918, and you fit low slung, but it feels like a proper sports car. What a cool car, just to look at the interior. And even you have these really, really tiny, you can see they're incredibly tiny, that help block out the sun for the vents, and including some more lighting in our little piece that we mentioned earlier. So that's a quick look at the interior of the Porsche 918 Spyder. Okay, so let's drive the Porsche 918 Spyder. Wow, first of all, the fenders stick out like massive pontoons, which makes it easy to see where the wheels are, which is really nice from a driving perspective. So if you were going to take this on track even, you would have no problem hitting your apexes and just seeing where everything lines up for the car, which is unbelievable. You obviously get the open top roadster experience, which is great. And it's such a quiet car with like the hybrid system. You almost get more like tire and road noise than like anything else, which is pretty incredible. All right, get on the road here. Oh my Lord. And there's the 4.6 liter V8 kicking in. That is much louder once it gets going. Oh my gosh. What a car. What a visceral experience. And obviously with the top off is the only way to enjoy a car like this. Unbelievable. Oh my gosh. Just incredible. Downshifts, so smooth and crisp with the PDK system. What a great car. So with that, that's going to be the end of the video, taking a look at this beautiful paint-to-sample acid green Porsche 918 Spyder. And this is also a great time to remind you that this car is in fact heading to auction at the 2024 Barrett-Jackson Scottsdale auction on behalf of Silver Arrow Cars. So if you want to purchase this car, that is your opportunity, which is coming up here in January. So with that, that's the end of the video. If you enjoyed it and you could hit that like button for me, I'd really appreciate it. And let me know in the comment section, of course, what you think about the Porsche 918 Spyder, and of course this one being in a very fun, exciting color. If you want more content like this in the future, don't forget to get subscribed, and of course, thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you in the next one.